welcome to the Real Estate Tax Tips channel. My name is Cherry Chen, a chartered professional accountant located in Oakville, Ontario, Canada. And I'm on a mission to become the Google map for hardworking Canadians seeking financial freedom. Today, I have a very special guest here with me, Elizabeth Kelly. How are you?
Great. How are you doing, Cherry?
Good, good. But before I get to talk all about real estate with Elizabeth Kelly, I'm going to ask you guys to give us a thumbs up if you like our video and hit the subscribe button so then you can stay on top of the latest tax tips. Now, today, the reason why we have Elizabeth here with me is because I know a lot of us are hurting with their real estate portfolio. And it's important for me to seek out all these experts and see what they are doing in their portfolio themselves, as well as what they are doing with their students. Elizabeth is a very well-known real estate coach in the real estate community. So today I'm hoping to get some answers from her. So tell us a little bit about yourself first.
So my name is Elizabeth Kelly. I have been a real estate investor for almost 20 years now, and I have done a multitude of strategies. I've invested in most of the provinces in Canada as well as a little bit in the US. And my personal passion is rent-to-owns and private lending. Those are my favorite strategies. I was a trainer for Rich Dad for 8 years, and then I moved into the coaching space because I, like you, am on a mission. I want to help people confidently take action about their financial futures by investing in real estate.
Okay, that's really awesome introduction. Now, so you have been essentially helping other people as well to grow their portfolio. So you've been coaching many real estate investors. Can you tell me a little bit about what your first call would go? Like, I know people usually ask the investors, like, so what's your goal? That's our go-to question when we first meet an investor, because we wanted to know, hey, if you're buying like 20 or 30, then we need to set up corporation. But if your goal is buying one, then like we don't need to.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah.
So I sort of have 3 different pieces that I look at, and depending on the investor, everything I do is customized. It's very boutique coaching, so it's one-on-one. And we look at 3 different pieces. The first one is, where are you right now? So we need to establish what is going on with your portfolio, anything you own currently. Have we optimized your cash flow? Have we optimized your returns, which then sets you up for success for qualifying for future properties? The second piece we look at is, where do you want to get to? So anytime you're planning a trip, you start with, where am I now and where do I want to get to? And then the third piece of that is mapping out what obstacles lie on the journey to achieving your goals. So for some people it might be, I don't have enough knowledge. For other people it might be, my network isn't big enough and I need support in terms of being able to connect with people who can help me navigate my journey. So once we've sort of established those 3 pieces, we know where you are now, where you're going to get to, and what obstacles we anticipate, then we just start knocking down the obstacles piece by piece.
Say you have now a new client that
Yes.
wants potentially work with you, and the first thing he came into you and say is that I have 10 pre-construction condo in Toronto. And that's a lot, because we see a lot of people losing money and losing sleep over these things. So what's your advice to these people?
So specifically in pre-construction, or are we talking about anybody who's utilizing a strategy right now that is predicated on future valuations? Because it's not just people who have pre-constructions right now who are struggling, it's people who are counting on a future valuation. So whether it's a BRRRR, whether it's a multifamily with a refinance component, whether it's a flip, because the market has been so uncertain, then all of those people unfortunately are hurting right now. So my recommendation is we look at it and figure out, is there something we can do? Can we sell it? Is it worth walking away if you try and close on the property? Like, what do these different pieces look like? Really, at the end of the day, your investment decisions should be based on numbers, and the numbers should be your guidepost in terms of what the best option or opportunity is for you.
So that could include selling some of the portfolio off, and that could include essentially cutting your losses, right?
And sometimes, unfortunately, right now, it very much is that way. It's not just what's going on in the market, but our good friend Dahlia, I had a chat with her earlier this week, and she was saying one of the biggest challenges and struggles right now for investors is that the appraisals are coming in really low. The properties are being valued much lower than investors are anticipating. So it's not just about what do I think the property's worth, it's what kind of loan to value can I actually get. And the idea of, these perfect BRRRRs where you buy a property and you renovate it and you rent it out and you refinance it and pull all of your money back out, right now, those are unicorns in the marketplace, and they are just unfortunately not happening.
So I'm going to throw you another tough question. Now, we have all these people who are hurting at the moment. And then people always say that this is the best time to buy because this is the lowest of the low, supposedly. The market, the rumor on the street is that, hey, there is an interest rate cut coming. It's whether it is in June or it is sometime in the future.
Yes.
It's going to happen, but it's just a matter of when. So the speculation, the rumor on the street is that we should buy now.
Yes.
But then we're also advising some of your coachees to sell. So how does that reconcile each other? And for the record, this is not given to her. So I'm literally throwing her into this tough question.
Okay, so there's a few different pieces that we need to consider here. So if I am advising someone to sell, it's because their current financial position is not sustainable. So it's if you're in a serious negative cash flowing position and you don't have the reserves to be able to withstand that for a prolonged period of time. The reality is, if you are in this for the long haul, even if you are in a slight cash flow deficit right now, eventually things should right themselves and you should, all things being equal, come out ahead. But it's important to look at what is your day-to-day life like right now with these properties in your portfolio, what are the pain points, and then make the decision based on that. This is the best time to buy because when you look at the lifespan of a mortgage, and for most real estate investors, it's going to be 30 years. So when you look at that, we are farther ahead to pay a little bit more in interest right now, but to buy a property at a much lower purchase price than we are to hold off another 6 or 12 months. By then, I believe, and I can feel it in the marketplace, that there is this pent-up demand and that there will be, the prices will begin to increase, there will be more activity as soon as the rates show that they're stable and then begin to creep down. So we're in this kind of no man's land right now where people can see what's coming, but there's a lot of people still sitting on the sidelines. This is why it's a great time to buy right now, because by the time the rates actually start to tick down, by then the demand will have shot off and the demand will have substantially increased, and now you're paying more for the same property. So in the lifespan of the mortgage, you're going to be farther ahead to pay a little bit less for the property, even if your current interest rate is higher.
Now, so that's great advice. Are you buying right now?
So I am not buying single family homes right now. I have moved into the space of real estate business. So I'm looking more for scalability right now. As much as I love rent-to-owns, I want to be able to do it in a way that is going to have or make a substantial impact in a community. I'm not looking to buy a single family home. I know people are in love with multifamily right now. Having owned multifamily for the last 15 years, I am not in love with them.
That's great. That makes another day's topic.
Yeah, so I am looking at buying, but I am not looking at buying individual properties, although I have a lot of clients. I have clients who right now we are working very diligently on building a portfolio of triplexes and fourplexes, and it's kind of that sweet spot. You're still in the residential financing. You don't have all the common areas and a lot of the headaches that come with the bigger buildings. You still have more flexibility. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. The biggest challenge I think right now is finding deals. Deal flow is the biggest challenge for most investors.
I thought that there are tons of listings in the market waiting to...
There are a lot of listings. In my experience, though, a lot of the people who have listed have a price that they're not willing to go below, and sellers haven't really acknowledged how much the market has come down the way that you would normally have expected.
Okay, so my follow-up question to it. Okay, where are you buying?
So I love Ontario. As much as I'm not a fan of the Residential Tenancy Act, I do love Ontario. So I am buying and looking at business opportunities. So I'm looking more in the commercial space, again in Ontario. I'm looking more at venues or places where I can run a business out of. I'm making modifications to my current business, and I am looking in the US with some of my clients.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. I know that you're doing an event. That's an upcoming event, right?
Yes.
And this is all your client focus. I know you have a passion about rent to own. I think that's how we first met as well. And your focus was on rent to own.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about what rent to own is.
So rent to own is an investment model where we find a tenant buyer and we offer them the opportunity to purchase a property on or before a certain date for a predetermined price. So typically it's a house. It could be a duplex. Sometimes it's even a triplex. But basically,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to cut you off, but really triplex too.
Absolutely. The numbers in rent to own are actually more favorable for the tenant buyer if they are willing to rent to own a multi-unit house.
I didn't know that. So what's the benefit to the tenant buyer? Why would they go through you instead of buying the house directly?
Most of our tenant buyers are suffering or are challenged with in a couple of different areas. So it might be that they don't have the sufficient down payment funds that the bank is looking for. They might have some bruised credit. Maybe they've been through some health issues. Maybe they've had some unemployment issues, and the bank is, for whatever reason, they don't qualify or they don't meet the criteria that the bank has laid out. And then the other one is sometimes people are new to the country or they don't have long enough credit history, whatever those kind of requirements might be. But rent to own gives them the opportunity to choose their home now, be able to live in it. They've got stability, they've got security, they can plan, they can budget, they choose the school district for their children, and there's so many benefits for tenant buyers in a rent to own.
So what's in it for us as investors?
So for us as investors, it's a great strategy in terms of being relatively passive and hands-off. So because you don't need a property manager, you just need to inspect the property every 3 to 4 months to make sure everything's in alignment. The tenant buyer is a homeowner in training. So they are going to manage the property. They're going to do the snow removal. They're going to take care of cutting the grass and looking after everything as if it's their home. It's a great investment model if you want to joint venture with someone, so you can find the tenant buyer and the property and put the whole deal together and just bring in someone to do qualifying for the mortgage and the financing. And you deal with fantastic people. These are people who have this dream and this aspiration of home ownership. You have the opportunity to be able to help them achieve that, and then you are also financially rewarded for understanding that you are taking on a risk that a bank is not comfortable taking on at this point.
That's awesome. So I know that you're hosting this event, all focusing on rent to own.
Yes.
And so for anyone who's interested in signing up for this particular event, the registration link is going to be in our description below. And I'm also going to be presenting on the tax implication on this rent to own strategy as well. So I hope everyone who's interested in the rent to own space would be able to join us in April. You also mentioned earlier that your favorite strategy is private lending. Now, given the amount of not so great news about private lending in this space, what's your best advice? Because there are people, we have also some clients that are working with investors. What can we learn from these? And what have you been teaching what's your secret sauce that you taught your coachee that you can share with us?
So, in terms of current recommendations for private lending, first of all, no prom notes. No exceptions, no prom notes. Do not do prom notes, do not do unsecured lending.
Okay, promissory note. What is promissory note?
So a promissory note is an agreement between you and I on paper that says you're going to lend me $100,000 and you're going to pay me I'm going to pay you X amount in interest, but there's nothing registered anywhere. There's nothing security. There's no security. It's literally a handshake and a relationship between the two of us. And because there is nothing registered anywhere, there's no title, there's no documentation other than this little piece of paper that only the two of us know about, that means that unfortunately there's no security for you.
Yeah, so if things are not happening as expected, you know, like typically the story that I heard on the street, and including one of my clients, is that a real estate investor with a property would approach someone and they need money for the renovation, and they would offer a higher interest rate and say, hey, like, would you be able to lend me money for my renovation project? This is the particular property. Now, when you lend on promissory note, as an investor, as the lender, you are getting a higher return, I assume, hopefully,
yes.
Because your promissory note is not registered against the property. So in one of our clients' situation, the property was sold. She was not even notified,
yep.
which was horrible. And now, so no prom note, that's number one, right?
Yes.
And so what other criteria would you be looking at?
So there a lot of, so if we can back up for one second, humor me and let's back up for a second. So when people talk about private lending, there are two sort of portions to it. So one is where your loan is registered on the title of the property, which is secured, and then we've been talking about unsecured, which is the promissory note piece. So in terms of looking at the secured piece, you want to do things like look at the property that is securing your loan. You want to look at the market where it's located, what is it being used for, what is the loan to value on that, and then you also want to look at the borrower. You know, what is their credit position? What is their vision for this property? Do they have experience or a proven track record of being able to execute on this? You have to think about this from the perspective of the worst case scenario. So if this borrower defaults and stops paying me and I have to go through power of sale or foreclosure proceedings and take this property back, will I be able to execute and complete whatever the borrower's vision is in order to be able to get my money back? Because that's really what it comes down to as a lender, is I want to test the viability of this strategy, this property in this market being able to give me my funds back.
So what kind of interest rate are we looking at these days on earning? From your experience.
So
obviously you don't do any of these, but I'm just wondering, from your experience, what are you seeing in the marketplace?
So in first position right now, I'm depending on the loan to value. Obviously, first position has the lowest amount of risk versus second or third position. And then the loan to value plays a role. So when people are doing, 100% loan to value, even if you're in first position, that interest rate is going to be higher. So the range I'm seeing is between 8 and 12% for firsts, and then between 10 and 15 for seconds. Part of the reason why people end up so willing to do promissory notes despite knowing in the back of their head that there is no security there is because I've seen people offering 15, 18. I even saw someone the other day posting online, which is another big no-no, in a Facebook group, and offering 30%. And people need to understand that those numbers are so enticing because the risk is so high.
Yes. Well, they always say that the higher the risk, the higher the interest rate, right? So the higher the reward.
Potential reward.
Yeah, potential reward. So that's the reason why, like 30%, automatically your spider sense should come out. It should be like, this is really, really expensive and high return, and that just simply means that the risk underneath the project would be high, and you have to be willing to part with your money. I think Warren Buffett and I think his investment partner Charlie Munger, they always talk about keeping your investment dollar intact and not losing the money.
Yes.
And that's way more important than generating the income for it.
Yes, I agree with that, and that unfortunately is the problem with inflation, right? Is that it's actively eroding our investment dollars. Yep. The people I really feel for are the people who used money from a home equity line of credit to then do promissory note private lending.
Yeah.
And now not only do they not have that income coming in, now they need to find a way to pay it back. So you need to understand when you make decisions about where your money is coming from and where your money is being placed, you need to be comfortable wanting the worst case scenario, which is what happens if I don't get my capital back.
Yeah, absolutely. This is heartbreaking situation for quite a few of our clients as well who are investing in this particular instrument. So you have to be very diligent, very careful in terms of what your choice of investment is. Now tell me about the upside of private lending. There gotta be an upside to be your favorite one, and we will end at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my favorite parts of private lending, first of all, is the tremendous opportunity. It's a relatively simple strategy. So if this is something that you're considering, it is very easy to become properly educated, to know and understand the risks and the benefits. I love it because it's very passive. So I place my money with someone, and ideally in a perfect world, they're going to pay me every month, and at the end of the term of the mortgage, then they are going to pay me back my principal, and I get the opportunity to move on and do it again. It gives me the opportunity to help investors fund deals and for me to be part of deals that I might not necessarily do myself. So it becomes part of a diverse portfolio. So for example, if I was buying a property for a rent to own, I'm looking in secondary markets. So I'm looking in, the Durham area, or I'm looking in, sort of the smaller outside of main city centers. However, if I'm doing private lending, I'm typically looking for properties in, say, Toronto, for example, which have a more robust market. There's more protection for me, but it doesn't make sense for me to go buy a single family home in Toronto. There's not going to be any cash flow. So private lending provides diversity. It is very passive. It gives you the opportunity to help other investors and be part of projects that you might not normally do. And I find that there's a really good community of people. It's relatively simple. So you can find someone like yourself, Cherry, say for example you wanted to do, you were specializing in a particular investment model. I could repeat with you because I trust you and I know you and I know you know what you're doing, and then it becomes even easier. And it's even more hands-off because I don't have to look for a new borrower every time I get my money back.
That totally makes sense. I really do appreciate the passive aspect of investing in private lending. But everyone should be really careful when they are being approached and when you're considering doing private lending.
Yes. If your spidey sense is telling you that it feels too good to be true, it probably is. Make sure you educate yourself. People like you know private lending inside and out. Reaching out and saying, hey, would you sign this agreement? Something like that can be a very powerful part of your due diligence process.
Absolutely. Make sure you do your own due diligence, 100%. Now that we've covered so much, we've covered how everyone should handle the losses or how the potential losses that they have. We talk about the market that we are buying in and if you should be buying properties altogether. We also talk about the rent-to-own strategy. We talk about the private lending strategy. Now, for anyone who's interested in working with you as your coachee, how do they contact you?
You can find me on Instagram, Elizabeth Kelly Consulting. I'm also on Facebook. I have a new TikTok account, but I don't spend much time there. But I promise I'm really easy to find. I'm also typically at a couple of networking events a month. So if you want to come out and say hi in person, I would absolutely love to connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to our show.
Thank you so much, Cherry, for having me. It was great to be here again.
Yeah, thank you.